The alert came at the worst possible moment. Grand Admiral Sarah Khan was seated at a long, polished table, surrounded by powerful senators and high-ranking officers. The room was filled with quiet laughter, soft music, and the comfort of routine power. Nothing in this empire had truly threatened them in centuries. Then his wrist communicator buzzed. Once, he ignored it. Twice, still nothing. The third time, it wouldn't stop. That was when he knew this was not normal. He stood up calmly, excused himself, and stepped out onto the wide balcony overlooking the glowing city of Velkera. Towers of glass and light stretched endlessly, a symbol of an empire that believed itself untouchable. He answered the call. "Sir," the voice on the other end trembled. Khan froze slightly. It was Officer Corbin, 11 years on duty, never shaken, not once. "We've lost contact with Border Patrol Cruiser 794, Outer Vale Sector. Their last transmission—" "Sir, you need to see it." Khan didn't ask questions. "Send it. I'm on my way." He arrived at Fleet Command faster than anyone expected. The underground command center was alive, but too quiet. Analysts worked, but their eyes kept drifting toward him. That silence carried more fear than any alarm ever could. Then he saw it. The image on the central display flickered with static, broken and incomplete, but it was enough. A ship. No, something else. It was massive, far larger than anything in the Dominion fleet, almost double the size of their largest warship. But it wasn't just the size, it was the way it looked. Dominion ships were smooth, elegant, almost beautiful, designed with curves and balance, even in space where such design didn't matter. This ship was the opposite. It looked brutal. Sharp edges, flat armor plates, dark metal that wasn't painted, but burned, scarred, repaired again and again until the repairs became part of its identity. This was not a ship built for display. It was built to survive. Deep grooves ran across its hull, marks of weapons that had tried and failed to destroy it. Sections didn't match, colors shifted where repairs had been made over time. It looked old, not weak, just tired, and still moving. "Speed?" Khan asked quietly. "Faster than anything we've recorded at that size," replied Corbin. Khan's jaw tightened. "Direction?" A pause. "Toward populated space." The room grew heavier. Khan leaned closer to the display. "There are markings," he said. "Has anyone translated them?" "Xenolinguistics is working on it," Corbin answered. Khan nodded slowly. "And the cruiser?" Silence. No debris, no explosion. It just stopped transmitting. 240 crew. Gone. Just like that. Hours later, a report arrived. A partial translation. Old. Very old. Matching symbols found on debris discovered over 300 years ago in a distant satellite galaxy. Not from here. Not even from this galaxy. And one fragment stood out. 4 characters. X, N, S, C. No meaning. No explanation. Just a name, or part of one. Khan read the report again. Then again. A ship from another galaxy, moving fast, destroying silently, heading inward. This was not just a threat. This was something unknown, something the Dominion had never faced before. He called his command staff immediately. Within hours, a decision was made. 40 warships would intercept, overwhelming force, certain victory. At least that's what everyone believed. Khan looked once more at the image of the scarred vessel. For the first time in decades, he didn't feel certain. And far out in the darkness beyond the Empire's reach, something ancient, something damaged, and something very, very far from home, kept moving forward. 40 warships were sent to stop one ship, But what returned wasn't a victory report. It was something far worse.
Fleet Admiral Harros had never lost a battle. Not once. That fact followed him like a shadow of confidence as his fleet moved through space in perfect formation. 40 warships, organized, disciplined, and deadly. The pride of the Dominion. To him, this mission was simple. One unknown ship, 40 warships. The outcome was obvious. "Maintain formation," Harros ordered calmly. "Weapons charged, but hold fire until my command." Around him, officers worked with quiet efficiency. No fear, no hesitation. This was routine, another problem to be solved. Ahead of them, the unknown vessel appeared on sensors. Large, unmoving in course, not hiding. That alone was strange. "Target confirmed," a sensor officer reported. "No evasive maneuvers. It's holding trajectory." Harros leaned forward slightly. "Interesting," he said. Then something else appeared. "Sir, it's broadcasting." The room shifted. "On multiple frequencies," the officer continued, "repeating signal pattern." "Translation?" Harros asked. "Not ready yet. Too complex." Harros didn't hesitate. Ignoring it, maintain approach. Because in his mind, signals didn't matter. Only actions did. And the Dominion had already decided what this ship was. A threat. The fleet spread out into intercept formation, a wide net, cutting off every escape path, clean, precise, perfect. On one of the cruisers, a young sensor officer named Vina watched her screen closely. Something felt wrong. The unknown ship had clearly detected them, but it didn't react. No change in speed, no change in direction, no defensive preparation. Just the same signal, over and over, as if it was waiting. Vina frowned slightly. She almost reported it. Almost. But there was no time. "Admiral," Weapons Control said, "all systems ready." Harros didn't even look away from the display. "Fire." The first strike was overwhelming. 40 warships unleashed everything at once. Plasma beams burned across space. Mass driver rounds tore through the void. Graviton bombs detonated with enough force to crush metal like paper. Every shot hit, every single one. Vina's sensors confirmed it. Direct impacts across the entire hull. For a moment, there was silence. Then confusion. "It's still moving," someone said. Vina's eyes widened. The ship had taken the full force of the attack, and it was still moving. Not unharmed, no. Her sensors showed heat spikes, damage, stress across the hull. But it didn't slow down. It didn't break. It didn't even turn. It just kept going. 11 seconds passed. Exactly 11. Then the signal stopped. That was the moment everything changed. The unknown ship responded. Not wildly, not with panic, with precision. Vina watched in horror as her screen lit up. Target lock, not on all ships, on one. A heavy cruiser, the Dominion's strongest class. A flash, gone. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Before anyone could react, another, then another. "Return fire," someone shouted, but it was too late. The unknown ship wasn't attacking like a fleet. It was selecting, choosing targets one at a time. Heavy cruisers first, then destroyers, then frigates. Each shot clean, each shot final. No wasted movement, no wasted energy. This wasn't a battle, it was a process. Vina's breathing became uneven as alarms filled the bridge. Ships were disappearing from her display faster than she could track. 17 ships lost, 23, 30. Panic began to break through discipline. This wasn't supposed to happen, not like this. Harros stood frozen for a moment, not from fear, from disbelief, because nothing in his experience made sense anymore. "Regroup," he started. The flagship shook violently.
Vina didn't hear the rest. Her ship was hit. Systems failed instantly. Lights died. Sound cut out. She didn't remember getting to the escape pod, only fragments, flashing alarms, voices shouting. Then silence. Complete silence. 19 minutes. That was all it took. 40 warships. Gone. When the last ship disappeared, the unknown vessel stopped firing immediately. No follow-up attack, no scanning for survivors, no finishing strikes, just silence. Then, the signal returned. The same repeating message, as if nothing had happened. Vina floated in darkness. Her escape pod drifted among the remains of a fleet that no longer existed. Through the small window, she could see pieces of ships, broken, scattered. She tried not to look. She failed. Then she saw it. The ship, moving slowly now, not hunting, not attacking, just drifting, carefully, as if searching. Vina activated her recorder with shaking hands. She didn't fully understand what she had witnessed, but she knew one thing. This needed to be recorded, every second, because whatever this was, the Dominion had made a terrible mistake. The ship that destroyed 40 warships wasn't hunting, it was searching, and what it found next would change everything.
Vina forced herself to breathe slowly. In, out, steady. Training, that's what she held on to. Not fear, not panic, just training. She was a sensor officer. Her job was to observe, so she did. Her escape pod drifted quietly through the wreckage. Pieces of ships floated past her window, metal fragments, broken hull sections, silent reminders of how quickly everything had ended. 19 minutes, 40 warships, gone. She swallowed hard and turned her focus back to her instruments. Recording, active. Beacon, transmitting. Life support, stable, for now. She had time, not much, but enough. And then, her sensors picked something up. Movement. Her heart jumped. She turned toward the small window. The ship. It was closer now. Not rushing, not threatening, just moving slowly, carefully. That was the strange part. It wasn't acting like a predator. It wasn't acting like a victor. It was moving like something tired. Vina pressed closer to the glass. Up close, the ship looked even more damaged than before. She could see layers of repairs, old ones, newer ones, and even newer ones over those. Some sections looked like they had been rebuilt multiple times. This ship had survived countless battles and kept going. Why? That question stayed in her mind. Then, something unexpected happened. A section of the ship opened. Not a weapon, a hatch. Vina froze. Her hand hovered over the emergency controls. Then her communicator flickered. Incoming signal. Her breath caught. The signal connected automatically. At first, it was just sound, a voice, speaking in a language she didn't understand. It repeated, again and again, a recorded message directed at her. "They know I'm here," she whispered. Fear tightened in her chest, but she didn't turn it off. She listened. After a few cycles, the message changed. The voice became distorted, mechanical, trying to adjust, trying to translate. Then, words, broken, incomplete, but understandable. "We speak, no fight." Vina leaned closer. "We, far from home." Her heart began to pound. "We, lost." The pod felt smaller suddenly. "We, want, talk." She stared at the screen. "We, want, go home." Silence. Then the screen changed. A face appeared. Vina gasped softly.
She had never seen anything like it. 2 forward-facing eyes, flat face, light brown skin, short gray hair. The being looked old, not weak, just worn. There were lines on the face, deep ones, around the eyes, around the mouth, the kind of lines that came from time, from stress, from survival. But what struck her most was the expression. It wasn't anger, it wasn't pride, it wasn't victory. It was something else, something quiet, something careful, something sad. The being looked directly at her, then spoke again. The translation struggled, but it tried. We alone. A pause. The eyes didn't move. Please. The signal ended. Vina didn't move, not for several seconds. Her hands trembled slightly. Her mind raced. This didn't match anything she had been taught. Enemies didn't act like this. Enemies didn't ask. Enemies didn't say please. She looked back out the window. The ship was still there, still moving slowly, still not attacking, still not threatening, just present, as if waiting for an answer. Vina looked at her controls. She could respond. She could send something back. But what? She didn't know their language. She didn't know their intentions. All she had was what she had seen and what she had heard. She made a decision. She began recording everything. Her voice shook at first, but she forced it steady. This is Sensor Officer Vina, Dominion Fleet. She described the battle, the attacks, the way the unknown ship had responded, the precision, the silence, the stopping. Then she described the message, every word, every detail, the face, the expression. She paused for a moment, then added something she hadn't planned. They did not act like attackers, she said quietly. They acted like they didn't want this. She hesitated, then finished. They said they are lost. Another pause. They said please. She packaged the transmission, marked it highest priority, and sent it. The signal shot out into space, carrying everything she had seen, everything she believed mattered. She didn't know if anyone would receive it. She didn't know if she would survive long enough to find out, but she had done her job. She leaned back slowly. Exhaustion hit her at once. Outside, the unknown ship began to move away, not chasing, not staying, just leaving, as if its purpose here was complete. Vina watched it go, and for the first time since the battle began, she felt something other than fear. Confusion, because the thing that destroyed 40 warships had asked for help. The Empire thought they had faced a weapon, but what if they just met something that didn't want to fight at all?
Inside the massive unknown vessel, there was no cheering, no celebration, no sense of victory, only quiet work. Captain Alara Voss stood at the center of the bridge, reading damage reports on her screen. Her face showed no excitement, only focus. Section 7 breach contained, an officer reported. Hull integrity at 83%. Reactor fluctuations, stable. Minor injuries in engineering, no fatalities. Voss nodded once. Good, keep it that way. Around her, the crew moved quickly but calmly. They were used to this. Repairs, checks, quiet communication. No panic, no wasted motion. This was not their first fight, and not their worst. Still, it wasn't one they wanted. Voss turned slightly. The escape pod, she said. Status. Her communications officer checked his console. Still active, Captain. Beacon signal is steady. Voss paused. Did they respond to our message? No direct reply, but the signal adjusted after our transmission. Whoever is inside heard us. Voss looked toward the observation window. Outside, pieces of destroyed ships drifted slowly in space. 40 warships. Gone. Her jaw tightened just slightly. She hadn't wanted this. She had broadcast a message for 40 minutes before the attack. She had repeated it on every frequency they could detect. She had given them every chance. But they fired anyway. And once the fight began, there was no other outcome. She turned away from the window. "Get me a full count of expended weapons," she said. "Everything. I want exact numbers." "Yes, Captain." She walked slowly across the bridge, her boots echoing softly. This ship, the UNSC Adamantine Resolve, was not elegant. It wasn't designed to impress. Everything inside it was practical, functional, built for long journeys. Very long ones. "Navigator," she said, stopping near another station. "A position update." A young man named Obi looked up from his screens. His eyes were tired, more tired than anyone else on the ship. "Still the same estimate, Captain," he said. "About 2.3 million light-years from home." A pause. "Different galaxy," he added quietly. The words hung in the air. Even after 2 years, they still felt unreal. "Any progress?" Voss asked. Obi hesitated. "I'm trying, every day, but the anomaly that brought us here, I can't recreate it." He looked back at his calculations. "I don't know how to get us home yet." Voss studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Keep trying." "I will." She moved back to the center of the bridge. "Senior staff meeting, 10 minutes. The crew exchanged quick glances. They all knew what that meant. Another decision, another step forward, because standing still wasn't an option. 10 minutes later, they gathered in the briefing room. The atmosphere was serious, but not tense. These people trusted each other. They had to. After 2 years in unknown space, that trust was the only thing keeping them together. Voss stood at the head of the table. "We made contact," she began. "It didn't go the way we wanted." No one argued. They all knew. "We're not the only civilization here, and based on today, they're not ready to listen." A quiet voice spoke, her first officer, Riku. "They sent 40 ships. Next time it won't be 40. Voss nodded. "I know." Another officer leaned forward. "So what's the plan? Run?" Voss' head shook immediately. "No." Silence filled the room. "We don't run," she said simply. That was the truth of it. They couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. "We keep trying to communicate," she continued. Some of them looked surprised. "After that?" someone asked. "Yes," Voss said. She folded her arms. "They attacked first. We defended ourselves. That doesn't change what we are here for." She paused. "We're not conquerors. We're not invaders." Her voice softened slightly. "We're lost." That word settled heavily. "We need help," she added. "And someone out there has to be willing to talk." Riku studied her carefully. "And if they send more ships?" he asked. Voss didn't hesitate. "Then we try again. And if they attack again?" A longer pause. Then we fight," she said. The room went quiet, because they all understood what that meant. Against 40 ships they had survived. Against more, no one was sure. But still, no one argued. Because they trusted her. Because deep down, they all felt the same thing. They didn't want another battle. They wanted a way home. Voss looked around the room one last time. "We'll prepare another message," she said. "Clear, direct, honest." She turned toward the door.
Let's hope this time someone listens. Outside the ship, the wreckage drifted silently. And somewhere far away, a single escape pod carried a message back to an empire that had just lost 40 warships. A message that wasn't about victory or defeat, but something far more dangerous: the truth. While the empire prepared for war, the crew of the unknown ship prepared to speak again. But next time, hundreds of warships would be waiting.
Grand Admiral Sarah Khan received the transmission in silence. No one spoke as the data loaded. No one moved. The room itself felt heavier, like something unseen had entered with the report. "Play it," Khan said quietly. The recording began. First came the battle data. Cold numbers, precise timelines. 40 warships, erased in less than 20 minutes. No chaos, no mistakes, just efficiency. Khan's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Then the second part played. Vina's voice, shaking at first, then steady. She described everything: the attack, the response, the silence, the way the unknown ship had stopped the moment the last threat was gone. That detail caught Khan's attention. He leaned forward. Ships didn't stop like that, not in real combat, not unless they didn't want to continue. Then came the message, the broken translation. "We no fight." Khan's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the console. "We lost." A murmur passed through the room, quiet, uncertain. "We want talk." No one interrupted now. No one dared. "We want go home." The room was completely still. Then, the face appeared. Several officers flinched, some leaned closer, others looked away. It was unfamiliar, strange, but not monstrous, just different. Old, tired. And when the final word came, "Please," the recording ended. No one spoke. For several long seconds, the entire command center remained silent. Khan stood there, still, thinking. Not about the battle, not about the loss, about the pattern. 40 minutes of broadcast before the attack, ignored. A response only after being fired upon. Precise targeting, immediate ceasefire. And then, a message asking to talk. That was not how enemies behaved. That was not how invaders acted. That was something else. Something dangerous in a completely different way. Because it meant they might have been wrong. "Analysis," Khan said finally. One officer spoke carefully. "They could be deceiving us, sir." "Maybe it's a tactic, lower defenses, gain sympathy." Khan nodded slowly. "Possible. But does deception usually involve destroying 40 warships after asking to talk?" he asked calmly. No one answered, because the question didn't fit their expectations. Another officer spoke. "Sir, even if the message is real, there's still a threat." Khan turned slightly. "Yes," he said, "that hasn't changed." His voice was steady, controlled, but something had shifted. "We don't know what they are, we don't know where they come from, and we just learned we can't stop them easily." That part no one argued, because it was now a fact. Hours later, the Senate was called into emergency session. The chamber filled quickly, voices rose, arguments began before the session even officially started. 40 ships destroyed. This is war. They're advancing towards us. We must respond immediately. Fear spread faster than information. Some called for immediate retaliation, others demanded full mobilization. A few said nothing at all. Khan stood at the center and presented the report, every detail, every number, every second, and finally, the message. When he finished, the chamber fell into uneasy silence. Then the questions began. How fast can we assemble another fleet? What weapons can we deploy at maximum scale? Can we contain them before they reach spinner systems? Khan answered all of them, clearly, honestly. Then, a voice cut through the noise. Calm, sharp, different. What about the signal? The room shifted. All eyes turned. Senator Laureen Adara stood slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. They asked to speak, she said. Simple, direct, uncomfortable. Murmurs spread again. They destroyed 40 ships, someone shouted. Laureen didn't react. Yes, she said, calmly. After we ignored them and opened fire first. That stopped several voices immediately. She stepped forward slightly. They broadcast for 40 minutes, a request for communication. We chose not to answer. Silence grew heavier. They responded only after being attacked. She looked around the chamber, one by one. Are we certain, she asked, that they are the aggressors? No one answered, because the question itself felt dangerous, not politically, not strategically, but truthfully. Another senator stood angrily. They are in our space. They destroyed our fleet. They are a threat. Laureen nodded once. I agree, she said. They are dangerous. Then she paused. But dangerous does not always mean hostile. That sentence lingered, unsettling, difficult, real. She turned toward the display. The image of the scarred ship filled the chamber. Look at it, she said. Look closely. They did, and for the first time, some of them didn't just see a threat. They saw something else. Damage, age, survival. This is not a fresh warship. This is something that has been through a lot. She turned back. They said they are lost. Her voice softened slightly. They said they want to go home. The chamber remained quiet, not convinced, but no longer certain. Khan watched all of it, every reaction, every hesitation, every shift, because this was the moment everything changed. Not the battle, not the loss, but this, the doubt. And doubt was something the Dominion had not felt in a very long time. The Empire had always known how to fight, but now they faced something far more dangerous, the possibility that they had attacked the wrong enemy.
The Senate chamber had never felt this tense. Not in decades, not in centuries. Voices filled the air, rising and falling like waves crashing against stone. Some were loud with anger, others were quiet with fear. A few carried something worse, uncertainty. Grand Admiral Khan stood to the side now, watching, listening. Because this was no longer just a military problem. This was a choice, and choices like this changed history. They destroyed 40 ships, one senator shouted again. And we attacked them first, Laureen replied calmly. The argument circled again, the same points, the same fears. But now something had shifted. People were thinking, really thinking. That alone was dangerous. Another senator stood. What if this is a trick, he demanded. What if this lost ship is just the beginning? Murmurs of agreement followed. Laureen nodded slightly.
"That is possible," she said. Then she took a step forward. "But if it is not, then what we do next matters even more." The chamber quieted just enough for her words to land. "If they are telling the truth, then we have already made one mistake." Her gaze moved across the room. "Do we want to make another?" Silence. Not complete, but enough, because now no one was fully certain anymore. Khan stepped forward again. "Time is limited," he said. All eyes turned to him. "The vessel is still moving inward. At its current speed, it will reach the next inhabited system within days." That changed the mood instantly. Fear returned, stronger this time. "We cannot wait," someone shouted. "We must act." "And what does acting mean?" Loreen asked quietly. No one answered immediately, because now the answer wasn't as simple. A younger officer, Vel, the same one who had spoken earlier in the briefing, stood near the edge of the chamber. He hesitated, then spoke. "What if we tried to communicate?" he said. The reaction was immediate, mixed. Some dismissed it, others didn't. "They already tried to communicate," Vel added. "We ignored it." That made several senators uncomfortable. They might not try again. Loreen glanced at him briefly, then back at the chamber. "He's right," she said. "We may not get another chance." But fear was louder. Fear always was. "We cannot risk it," another senator said. "If we hesitate, we show weakness." Khan watched carefully. That word again, weakness. It always came back to that, and it always pushed people toward the same decision, force. Finally, the presiding voice called for order. "Enough. We vote." The chamber stilled. This was it. 2 choices: attempt communication or respond with force. The vote was taken, one by one, names called, decisions made. Khan didn't move. He didn't react. But inside, he already knew. The result came quickly. 41 in favor of military action. A pause. 37 in favor of communication. Another pause. 9 abstentions. The decision was clear. Not overwhelming, but enough. Force had won. Loreen closed her eyes briefly. Not in defeat, just understanding. Fear had spoken louder. Again. Khan stepped forward again. 3 battle groups will be deployed, he announced. The room shifted again. That number mattered. Not 40 ships this time. 300. A force large enough to erase almost anything. They will intercept the unknown vessel before it reaches inhabited space. His voice remained steady, professional, controlled, but something behind it was not as certain as before. The chamber slowly emptied after the vote. Groups formed, whispers spread. Some felt relieved, others did not. Loreen walked out in silence. Vel followed her. "They made the wrong choice," he said quietly. Loreen didn't stop walking. "Yes," she replied. Vel hesitated. "Do you think the ship will survive?" he asked. Loreen paused near a tall window overlooking the city. Lights stretched endlessly below them. A powerful empire, certain of itself, for now. She thought about the image again, the damaged hull, the repairs, the age, the way it had survived everything thrown at it. Then she spoke carefully. "I think," she said slowly, "that whatever that ship has gone through," she paused, "it has survived worse than us." Vel didn't respond, because that answer was not comforting. Far away in the darkness of space, the unknown ship continued moving, silent, steady, unaware that 300 warships were already on their way, unaware that an entire empire had chosen fear over patience, unaware that the next encounter would decide everything. 300 warships were coming, but this time the unknown ship wouldn't run, and it wouldn't fire first.
Fleet Admiral Drath Vor did not underestimate enemies. That was why he was chosen. 300 warships moved under his command, forming one of the largest battle groups the Dominion had assembled in centuries. From his flagship,
Velkara's judgment, he watched the formation unfold across space like a tightening net. This was not a rushed mission. This was controlled, measured, prepared. He had studied the previous battle in detail, every second, every loss, every mistake. "Report," he said. "Fleet formation stable," an officer replied. "All units ready." Drathvor nodded slightly. "And the target?" "Still moving on the same course, no deviation." That detail bothered him. It had bothered him from the beginning. The unknown ship didn't act like something afraid. It didn't act like something aggressive either. It just moved, steady, consistent, as if it had a purpose, and nothing had changed that. Drathvor stood quietly at his command station. He reviewed the battle data again. 40 ships, destroyed in under 20 minutes, not overwhelmed, not outmaneuvered, chosen, one by one, and then it stopped, immediately. No finishing strikes, no pursuit. That was not how a predator behaved. That was not how a conqueror acted. That was something else. He didn't say it out loud because his orders were clear. Find the vessel, destroy it. No discussion, no interpretation, just action. Still, something didn't fit. "Estimated time to contact?" he asked. 6 hours, Admiral." Drathvor nodded. "Maintain formation." Hours passed. The fleet moved closer. And then, "Admiral, incoming transmission." The room shifted. "Source?" he asked. "The unknown vessel." Silence followed. "Put it through." The message filled the bridge, translated roughly but understandable. "This is the UNSC Adamantine Resolve." Drathvor listened, carefully. "We know you are coming." His eyes narrowed slightly. "We are not running." That alone caused quiet reactions across the bridge. No one said anything. "We are not preparing to fire." More silence. "We are holding position." Now, even the most experienced officers felt it. Something was different. "We came here by accident." Drathvor's attention sharpened. "We are far from our home." The room was completely still. "We do not want conflict." The words felt direct, not polished, not political, just honest. "We want to speak." A pause. "We want to go home." The transmission repeated, again and again. Drathvor didn't move for several seconds after it ended. Then he said quietly, "Play it again." They did. And again. He listened every time, not just to the words, but to how they were said. There was no threat, no hidden edge, just exhaustion. He turned to his officers. "Assessment." The weapons officer spoke first. "Could be deception, Admiral." The intelligence officer nodded. "Possible, but the behavior matches previous data." "Orders remain unchanged," another added carefully. That was true. The orders were very clear. Destroy the vessel. Drathvor knew that. Everyone did. But then, his second-in-command, Korth, spoke. Quiet, measured. "Admiral, we have 300 ships." Drathvor glanced at him. Korth continued. "If this is a trick, we can handle it." A pause. "But if it's not..." The sentence hung unfinished. It didn't need to be completed because everyone understood it. Drathvor looked back at the display. The unknown ship. Still there. Still not moving. Still not preparing for battle. Just waiting. That was the part that mattered most. Waiting. A ship surrounded by 300 warships would normally run, or strike first, or panic. This one did none of that. "Bring us into full engagement position," Drathvor ordered. "Yes, Admiral." The fleet spread out. 300 ships forming a complete sphere around the single vessel. Every angle covered, every escape route blocked, weapons charged, targeting systems locked. It was overwhelming, absolute dominance, the kind of force that ended wars before they began. And in the center of it all, the Adamantine Resolve sat still. No weapons charging, no movement,
No reaction. Just the same message, repeating, "We want to speak." Drath Vor stood there for a long time, looking at it, thinking, because this was the moment, the one that mattered. Follow orders or do something else. He pressed the communicator. Open a channel. A brief hesitation. Then, "Yes, Admiral. All frequencies. Translation active." The officer nodded. "Channel open." Drath Vor took a slow breath. This was not part of his orders. He knew that. Everyone did. But still, he spoke. "This is Fleet Admiral Drath Vor of the Dominion." His voice was steady, controlled, careful. "I have received your transmission." A pause. "I have also reviewed the record of your previous encounter with our forces." The bridge remained silent. "I am aware my orders are to destroy your vessel." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "I will speak with you first." That changed everything. Seconds passed, 7 seconds of signal delay, 7 seconds of silence. Then a reply came, a human voice, tired, real. "My name is Captain Alara Voss." Drath Vor listened, carefully, as she spoke of distance, of being lost, of 2 years searching for a way home, of a crew that simply wanted to return. No threats, no demands, just truth. "We want to go home." The words stayed in the room, heavy, unavoidable. Drath Vor stood very still, because for the first time in his career, this was not about winning. This was about deciding what kind of person he was going to be.
The bridge of Ilkara's judgment was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. 300 warships waited for a single command: fire or stand down. Fleet Admiral Drath Vor stood still, listening to the last words echo in his mind. "We want to go home." Simple, direct, honest. He had heard many voices in his life: commanders, enemies, politicians, soldiers. He knew what lies sounded like. He knew what fear sounded like. And this was neither. "Keep the channel open," he said quietly. "Yes, Admiral." He didn't sit. He didn't relax. He simply stood there, thinking. Because this decision would not just affect this moment. It would be remembered for a long time. He looked at the display again. The ship, scarred, damaged, still, waiting. It didn't look like something that had come to conquer. It looked like something that had survived for a very long time. "Admiral," his communications officer said carefully, "we have incoming priority orders from the Imperial Palace." The room shifted slightly. Drath Vor nodded. "Read them." The officer hesitated, then continued. "Immediate execution of mission objective. Destroy the unknown vessel without delay. Any further communication is considered unauthorized." A pause. Then, "A relief commander is being dispatched. If you do not comply, you will be removed from command." Silence followed, heavy, unavoidable. Everyone on the bridge understood what that meant. This was no longer just a decision. It was a risk, personal, permanent. Drath Vor closed his eyes briefly, not in hesitation, in clarity. Then he opened them again. "Understood," he said. His voice didn't change, but something inside him had already decided. "Maintain position," he ordered. The officers exchanged quick glances, but no one questioned him, not yet. Hours passed, slowly, carefully. The conversation between Drath Vor and Captain Voss continued. It wasn't fast. The delay between signals made each exchange take time, but they kept talking. That was what mattered. "What is your origin?" Drath Vor asked at one point. A pause. Then Voss replied, "We are from a galaxy called the Milky Way." The name meant nothing to them, but the distance did.
approximately 2.3 million light-years from here. The room shifted again. Even experienced officers reacted to that distance. That distance was nearly impossible. "How did you arrive here?" he asked. Another pause. "We entered a spatial anomaly," Voss said. "It brought us here by accident. We've been trying to find a way back for almost 2 years." 2 years. Lost. Alone. In a galaxy not their own. Drath Vor felt something tighten slightly in his chest. Not fear. Something else. Understanding. "How many are on your ship?" he asked. 263, Voss replied. Another pause. "We have engineers, scientists, medical staff, and people with families." That last part lingered, not as strategy, not as manipulation, just truth. Drath Vor walked slowly toward the observation window. Outside, the massive fleet surrounded the single ship. 300 against 1. Overwhelming power. Certain victory. And yet, it didn't feel like victory. Behind him, the conversation continued. Questions, answers, careful translations, slow understanding. He thought about his own life, his home, his daughter. 14 years old, always asking questions about the fleet, about space, about what was out there. He thought about her being lost, somewhere far away, trying to find her way back, and no one listening. He returned to his station. "Communications," he said. "Yes, Admiral." "Prepare full transmission logs." The officer blinked. "All of them?" "All of them," Drath Vor confirmed. A pause. "Send them to Senator Laureen Adara's office." That caused real reaction. Quiet, but clear, because everyone understood what that meant. He was going around the Emperor. "Admiral," his second-in-command said carefully. "Yes. This will be noted." Drath Vor nodded. "I am aware." The transmission was sent. Every word, every detail, every piece of truth. Then he turned back to the channel. "Captain Voss," he said. A short delay. Then her voice returned. "Yes, Admiral." Drath Vor took a breath. "I am going to reduce my fleet's weapons readiness." Silence on both sides. "This is not authorized, but I believe it is necessary." Another pause, longer this time. When Voss spoke again, there was something different in her voice, something small, but real. "Thank you," she said. Drath Vor gave the order. Stand down from full weapons lock. Across 300 ships, weapons powered down. Not completely, but enough. Enough to show intention. Enough to show trust. For the first time since the fleet arrived, the tension shifted. Not gone, but different. Less sharp, less immediate. Drath Vor looked once more at the ship in the center. Still damaged, still quiet, still waiting. He had not ended the danger, not yet, but he had done something else. He had given it a chance, and sometimes that was the hardest choice of all. The fleet had stood down, but the Emperor had not, and the next order could turn this fragile peace into total destruction.
The message from the Imperial Palace did not take long to arrive. It never did. Power moved quickly when it was threatened. Fleet Admiral Drath Vor stood at his command station as the transmission came through. Everyone on the bridge felt it before it was even read. This would not be a good message. "Read it," he said calmly. The communications officer took a breath. "Direct order from Emperor Velthan IV." The room grew still. "Fleet Admiral Drath Vor is to immediately resume mission objective and destroy the unidentified vessel." A pause. "Failure to comply will be considered an act of insubordination." Another pause. "A replacement commander is already en route." Silence followed. Deep, heavy, final. Drath Vor did not react immediately. He simply looked at the message. Then he set it aside. Not dismissed, not ignored, just set aside. Because for the first time in his career, he was not sure if following orders was the right thing to do. Behind him, the bridge crew remained perfectly still. No one spoke. No one questioned him, but they were all thinking the same thing. What happens now? The communication channel to the unknown ship was still open, still active, still waiting. Drath Vor glanced at it, then back at the order. 2 choices, clear, simple, impossible. Maintain current status, he said. The words were quiet, but they changed everything, because that was his answer, for now. The conversation with Captain Voss continued, slow, careful, but real. They spoke about many things, not just survival, not just distance, but history. Your species, Drath Vor asked, how long have you traveled among the stars? There was a delay. Then Voss answered. Not as long as you, probably, she said. We're still learning. Honest. Again. Always honest. What kind of civilization are you? He asked. Another pause. A complicated one, Voss replied. A slight shift in her tone. We've had wars, mistakes, a lot of them. Drath Vor listened closely. But we've also learned, she added. Slowly, sometimes the hard way. That answer stayed with him, because it didn't sound like weakness, it sounded like experience. He asked another question. Why didn't you fire first when we arrived? A longer pause this time. Then, because we didn't want to, Voss said. Simple, clear. We've already seen what happens when we do. Drath Vor glanced briefly at the data from the destroyed fleet. 40 ships, gone, and still, they chose not to fight again. We knew you would outnumber us, Voss continued. We still know that. Another pause. But starting another fight won't get us home. The honesty in her voice was impossible to ignore. Drath Vor leaned back slightly. He had spent his entire life preparing for war, understanding it, mastering it. But this was something else. This was restraint, and restraint was far harder than force. Hours passed. The conversation grew deeper, more personal, more human, more real. Drath Vor found himself asking questions he had never expected to ask. "What is your home like?" he said at one point. There was a small pause. Then Voss answered. "Busy," she said, a faint hint of something softer in her voice. "Loud, messy, full of people who argue a lot." A slight pause. "But it's home." That word carried weight, even across galaxies. He thought about Velkara, the towers, the order, the certainty. So different, and yet it was home in one way. The bridge officer interrupted carefully. "Admiral, updated message from the palace." Drath Vor didn't look away from the display. "Later," he said, because right now, this mattered more. Meanwhile, far away on Velkara, the second Senate session had begun. This time, things were different, because now they had more than reports. They had conversations, real ones. Senator Loreen stood once again before the chamber, but this time she wasn't arguing theory, she was presenting truth. 4 hours, she said. That is how long Admiral Drath Vor has spoken with them. The room listened, really listened. They have not threatened him, she continued. They have not demanded anything. A pause. They have only asked for one thing. She let the silence settle. Help. The word echoed through the chamber, not loudly, but deeply. Vena stood nearby, called as a witness. She spoke when asked. She told them everything again. The battle, the message, the face, the word. Please. This time, more people heard it, not just as sound, but as meaning.
Loreen stepped forward again. "If we destroy this ship," she said, "we are not stopping an enemy." She paused. "We are silencing someone who asked to speak." That sentence changed the room. Not everyone, but enough. The vote was called again, slower this time, more careful. Names spoken, choices made. The result came. 44 in favor of communication. A pause. 39 in favor of military action. Another pause. 5 abstentions. It was enough. Barely, but enough. Back on the flagship, Draft Vor received the message. He read it once, then again. Then he allowed himself a small breath, the kind you don't realize you're holding until it finally releases. He activated the channel. "Captain Voss?" A short delay. "Yes, Admiral." "The order to destroy your vessel has been suspended." Silence, longer than the signal delay. Then, "Understood," she said, but her voice had changed, just slightly. Relief, carefully controlled, but there. Drath Vor allowed himself the smallest shift in posture. Not victory, not celebration, just a moment. The war that almost happened didn't, because enough people had chosen to listen. The battle was avoided, but the real question remains. What happens when two civilizations meet for the first time and neither truly understands the other?
The silence after the decision felt different. Not empty, not tense, just new. For the first time since the unknown ship entered Dominion space, no one was preparing to fire. Instead, they were preparing to talk. The communication channel between Fleet Admiral Drath Vor and Captain Elara Voss remained open, but now the tone had changed. It was no longer cautious survival. It was something slower, careful, deliberate. Two sides trying to understand each other. "Captain Voss," Drath Vor said, "we have authorization to continue communication." A short delay, then her voice came through. "Thank you, Admiral." Simple, but meaningful. The next conversations were different, less about immediate danger, more about everything else. "Your ship," Drath Vor asked, "it shows signs of repeated damage and repair." A pause. "Yes," Voss replied. "We've been through a lot." Another pause. "We don't give up easily." That answer stayed with him because it explained the ship, the scars, the strength. It wasn't design, it was history. "What happened before you arrived here?" he asked. A longer pause. Then, "We've faced things in our own galaxy," Voss said carefully. "Some of them almost ended us." The bridge grew quiet. "But we survived," she added, not proudly, not aggressively, just truth. Drafalur nodded slightly, even though he couldn't see it. Survival. He understood that. Meanwhile, on the Adamant Resolve, the mood was changing too. Still serious, still focused, but lighter, just a little, because for the first time in 2 years, there was hope. In the navigation room, Obi worked non-stop. The Dominion had sent partial star charts, not complete, not perfect, but enough to start building something real. "This helps," he said, eyes moving quickly across the screens. "This actually helps." Someone nearby smiled slightly, because they hadn't heard that in a long time. On the bridge, Voss stood quietly, listening, thinking, watching her crew. They were tired, all of them, but now they had something they hadn't had before, a direction. Back in Dominion space, the negotiations continued, slow, sometimes frustrating. Language barriers caused confusion, cultural differences made things complicated, but neither side stopped trying. That was the important part. "What exactly do you need?" Drath Vor asked. A pause. Then Voss answered. "Navigation data, star maps, information on anomalies, anything that could help us find a way back." Another pause. "We don't need territory. We don't need resources." Her voice remained steady. "We just need a path."
Drath Vor considered that, then replied, "That can be arranged with conditions." "Of course," Voss said. No argument, no resistance, because she understood. Trust had to be built. Over the next 2 days, an agreement slowly formed, carefully, piece by piece. The Dominion would provide detailed star charts of their galaxy, data on unstable regions of space, known anomaly locations. In return, the human ship would leave Dominion space peacefully, share limited observational data, and establish future communication protocols. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't complete, but it was enough. For both sides, it was a beginning. On the 3rd day, something unusual happened. Voss made a request. "Admiral," she said, "I'd like to establish a visual connection." Drath Vor paused. Visual communication was rare, even within the Dominion, but after everything, he agreed. Moments later, the screens activated, and for the first time, 2 completely different civilizations saw each other. On one side, Dominion officers stood in perfect formation, uniform, controlled, disciplined. On the other, the crew of the Adamant Resolve, different heights, different faces, different expressions, less uniform, more human. Drath Vor studied them. They didn't look like conquerors. They didn't look like threats. They looked like people, tired, hopeful, alive. At the center, Captain Voss. She looked directly at him, and for the first time, she smiled. Not a large smile, not dramatic, just real. "I wanted to say thank you properly," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was emotion behind it now. "You didn't have to do this." Drath Vor didn't answer immediately, because he wasn't used to this. Gratitude. It wasn't common in his world. "You also made a difficult choice, waiting instead of fighting." Finally, he said. A small pause. "That requires strength." Voss nodded slightly. "We've had practice," she said. That answer carried more meaning than it seemed. For a moment, neither side spoke. They just looked at each other, understanding slowly forming. Because for the first time, they weren't enemies. They were just 2 groups of people trying to do the right thing. The deal was made, trust was growing, but leaving safely would be the final test, and not everyone in the Empire was ready to let them go.
The day of departure arrived quietly. No alarms, no tension, just readiness. 300 Dominion warships held their positions in space, not as a threat anymore, but as witnesses. A massive formation stretching across the darkness, surrounding a single ship that had once been their enemy. Now, something else. At the center of it all, the Adamant Resolve prepared to leave. Inside the ship, the mood was different. Not relaxed, not yet, but lighter, more focused. Because this time, they weren't running, they were going somewhere. "Final system checks," Voss said calmly. "Engines stable. Navigation ready. Reactor holding steady." Obi stood at his station, barely blinking. His screens were filled with data, Dominion star charts layered over his own calculations. For 2 years he had been searching without direction. Now he had a map. Not perfect, not guaranteed, but real. "Course plotted," he said quietly. Voss looked at him. Confidence level. Obi hesitated, then gave a small, tired smile. "Higher than it's been in 2 years." That was enough. Across the fleet, Admiral Drath Vor watched. He stood at his command station, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the single ship that had changed everything. He had received dozens of messages from the Imperial Palace, some formal, some less so. Warnings, questions, reminders of his position, of his duty, of his risk. He had read them all and set them aside, because right now, this mattered more. "Channel open," his communications officer said.
Drathvor nodded. Captain Voss. A short delay, then her voice came through. Admiral. Clear, steady, but this time there was something else. Relief. You are cleared to depart, Drathvor said. The words felt simple, but they carried weight. A decision, a moment, a choice that could not be undone. There was a pause on the other end, longer than the signal delay. Then, understood, Voss replied. Another small pause. Thank you. Drathvor looked at the ship one last time, scarred, damaged, but still standing, still moving forward. Clear a path, he ordered. The fleet moved, 300 warships shifting position with perfect coordination. Slowly, a corridor opened, a path through overwhelming power, a path through what could have been destruction. The Adamant Resolve began to move, slow at first, careful, as if the moment itself mattered. Inside the ship, no one spoke loudly, no cheering, no celebration, just quiet focus, because even now, they weren't safe. Not yet.
The galaxy did not change overnight. Empires rarely did. But something had shifted, quietly, deeply, permanently. On Velkara, the capital of the Dominion, life continued as it always had. The towers still shone, the cities still moved, the people still believed in the strength of their empire. But inside the Senate, inside the military, inside the minds of those who had witnessed the event, nothing felt the same. Grand Admiral Sarah Khan stood alone in his office, looking at the star map. 14,000 systems, an empire unmatched, unchallenged for thousands of years. And yet, one ship had changed everything. Not by conquering, not by destroying, but by surviving and by asking. He replayed the recording again, the face, the voice, the word, please. It stayed with him because it didn't sound like weakness, it sounded like courage. Across the city, Senator Laureen finalized the official record. She made sure everything was included, not just the battle, not just the numbers, but the truth. The signal that had been ignored, the request to speak, the decision to fire first, the consequence, and finally, the choice to listen. She paused before submitting it, then added one final note. A civilization is not defined by how it wins wars, but by when it chooses not to fight them. She saved the record because she knew one day someone would read it, and it would matter. Fleet Admiral Drathvor returned to Velkara days later. No celebration, no recognition, only questions. Formal hearings, cold rooms, careful words. You disobeyed a direct order, one official said. Yes, Drathvor replied calmly. You risked the security of the Empire. I made a decision, he said. A pause, based on the information available. They questioned him for hours about his choices, his reasoning, his judgment. Would you make the same decision again? They finally asked. Drathvor didn't hesitate. Yes. That answer stayed in the room, because it was not defiance, it was certainty. Far beyond the Dominion, the Adamant Resolve moved through unknown space, faster now, with purpose. Inside the ship, life felt different, not easier, not safe, but hopeful. Obi hadn't slept properly in days, but this time, it wasn't from frustration, it was from progress. Captain, he said, eyes locked on his screens, we're getting closer. Voss stepped beside him. How close? He took a breath. If the data is correct, a pause. Very close. The bridge grew quiet, everyone listening, everyone waiting. For 2 years they had been lost. Now they might not be. Voss looked at her crew, each one carrying their own story, their own reason to return. Families, homes, lives waiting somewhere far away. "Stay focused," she said softly, because hope was powerful, but it also made things fragile. Days passed, then weeks, and then... "Captain?" Obi's voice changed. She turned immediately. "What is it?" He pointed at the display. "Anomaly confirmed." The room froze. "This matches the signature. Same type, same structure." His voice steadied. "This could be it." Silence filled the bridge. Not fear, not doubt, just wait. Voss stepped forward. "Prepare for jump." The crew moved quickly, carefully. Every system checked, every calculation confirmed, because this was everything. Voss sat in her command chair. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself a small breath. "Execute," she said. Space bent again, strange, unstable, but familiar now. The ship moved forward, into the unknown, and then it was gone. Back in the Dominion, the stars looked the same. Nothing had changed on the surface, but underneath, everything had. Because now they knew something they hadn't known before, that not every unknown was an enemy, that strength was not just power, and that sometimes the bravest thing a civilization could do was listen. Somewhere far beyond their reach, a ship full of tired people was trying to go home, and somewhere beyond that, someone was waiting for them. And maybe, one day, when the distance between galaxies didn't feel so impossible, they would meet again, not as enemies, but as something better, because it all started with one word, a simple word, a quiet word, a human word: please. Final rehook, ending hook. Sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe isn't a weapon. It's the moment someone chooses to listen instead of fight. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.